Welcome to Board Game Casual, and a very special episode as I'm being joined by my girlfriend Kathleen in this one. Being that Valentine's Day is just around the corner, I thought it would be fun for Kathleen and I to share our top 3 board games for 2 players. These can be games designed specifically for 2, or games that are ideal at 2 players, even if they support other player counts. We've each created our own separate lists. We don't know what's on each other's lists, and the approach that I suggested to creating this list is to imagine you're going to play a 2-player game. What game do you want to play most? What game are you grabbing off the shelf right now? So do you think we're going to have any crossovers?
I do. But I don't know what, but I do.
I think we're going to have at least one crossover, maybe 2, but I think at least one. All right, let's get into it. Real quick, before we get into the list, I'd like to thank FELTECTORS for sponsoring this video. I'm really excited to have them on board as a sponsor because I'm a huge fan of the game mat I bought a while back on Amazon. You probably see it on the table in most of my game videos and reviews. FELTECTORS makes awesome, affordable neoprene game mats, poker mats, felt table toppers, and more. They offer an array of sizes and colors, making it easy to pick the perfect game mat for your table. And trust me, nothing elevates the gaming experience more than having a nice surface to game on. FELTECTORS products are available on Amazon, or check out all they have to offer at FELTECTORS.com, where you can save $5 off of any order with coupon code OFF5 BoardGameCasual. Okay, back to the video. Now, as with most of these lists, I'm going to start off with an honorable mention that just didn't quite make my top 3, and that's Hanami Koji. This is usually the first game that pops in my head when I think about fun, small 2-player games. It's simple to teach, but has loads of strategy. Essentially, it's a card game where you have just 4 actions. Many are versions of I split, you choose. But the key is that you can only use each action once. It's quick, but thinky and tactical. I definitely recommend checking it out. Hanami Koji. All right, on to the list. Ladies first.
Thank you. Well, number 3 on my list is actually a tie. I don't know if that's allowed, but Splendor Duel. I really enjoy the fact that there are multiple potential paths to a win with this game. Do I want to collect crowns, point cards, cards of the same color? With multiple ways to win, plus the addition of the strategic coin placement and selecting, your initial path to win can often change from your initial decision. There is a little analysis paralysis in Splendor Duel for me, and I typically avoid indecisiveness and generally making moves pretty quick, but I found myself several times needing to steal additional minutes before making a decision.
Totally get that. All right, so you said you have 2 tied for 3rd.
I do.
Okay.
I had a hard time picking between the 2.
All right, I can relate to that.
So the game I have tied with Splendor Duel is actually Targi. The setup for Targi doesn't take long, and the tracking through to end of game with the robber is smart, with it blocking actions and triggering raids along the way. The robber is really the only way the players get hit with setbacks or a loss of supply. There's no way for the players to actually hurt each other in gameplay, so I do like that aspect. We can get upset with the robber together versus at each other.
So it's about as cooperative as a competitive game can get.
Yes, exactly. The worker placement turns allow for some planned strategies and then unexpected changes based on what your opponent does. You're also building your own tribe display on the side, and I like that this takes attention away from the main card setup, as well as layers on different options to gain points in the game. And these 2 are my tied for number 3.
I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if either of these games were going to be on your list.
I've always really enjoyed Targi. We used to play it quite a bit, not so much these days.
It's a great game. These are both amazing games. we might hear a little more about these games as we go down the list. Good choices. My number 3 solidified this spot because of our recent play. At first, I was thinking Hanami Koji would be my number 3, but our last couple of plays of Blitzkrieg reminded me how much I like it. My number 3 is Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg is a small 2-player bag pulling and tile placement tug of war game. It touts itself as World War II in 20 minutes, and I think it lives up to that claim. I think the theme comes through. One player is playing as the Axis, the other is playing as the Allies. You're thinking about tactics between your air, navy, and army units, and when and where to deploy them based on the different bonuses in different locations. And my favorite part is how quickly you can play a game. At a really high level, this game to me feels like a multi-dimensional game of Connect 4. Ultimately, you want to be the one to close these different rows for the additional scoring bonus. So you're trying to set up traps for your opponent, forcing them to place a tile that allows you to close the row. And candidly, this isn't even something I'm very good at. You're actually much better at this game than I am, but I still really enjoy it. That's my number 3, Blitzkrieg.
And there's pieces of this game that we haven't added in.
That's true. So this version comes with the Nippon expansion, which has Godzilla in it, but we've never tried that expansion yet, so we should probably mix that in and give it a try.
So number 2 on my list, Blitzkrieg. So this game for me is fast and pretty straightforward, which I really appreciate. It quickly morphs into more of a puzzle game where you really want to pay attention to your timing when placing tokens, especially if they are special weapons, spies, scientists, etc., which I feel adds a nice element of surprise and chaos. You're not just playing your turns in a basic back and forth. I love having my own shorthand rules reference card too, which doubles as a player screen. I personally cannot memorize rules after just a single read through, but also I don't always want others to know or notice when I have some complex plans in my head, thus need to read the rules again to ensure I'm taking a correct course of action.
That's true. I always appreciate a good player aid, and I mean, if you're building a game with privacy screens, it makes so much sense to have a nice quick key or quick reference on the back of that privacy screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I did not think there was any way that this game was going to be on your list.
I really like that it's fast and quick and it's puzzly, and like you mentioned, this typically is a game that I'm better at.
You're so much better at this game. Just the way you kind of describe what you like about it, about the puzzle, and thinking through that, I'm like, oh, that's not how I think about this game at all. You're much better at this game, but this is a fun game.
And obviously winning is nice, so that's on my list as, oh, this is more enjoyable because I have a chance at winning this one.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, that's my number 2.
All right, so that's one crossover already.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking we're going to have a lot more crossovers than we thought, because my number 2 is Targi. This is a small box 2-player game that offers a big box feel. It's a very unique worker placement where you're placing your 3 workers on the perimeter of this grid of cards. Not only do you get the rewards from the spaces where you've placed your workers, but almost more importantly, you get the cards in the middle where the row and the columns intersect. It's a really clever system and makes for a super fun game. There's also your own personal tableau system that you talked about, where you're building in front of you, which is how you choose and try to score points, but it's that core mechanism of the grid and that worker placement that I really like. For a long time, this was my favorite 2-player game. If you said, what's my number 1? For a long time, it would have been Targi. I feel like people in the know consider this one an evergreen classic, but outside of that, I don't hear Targi talked about as much as it should be. It's a really, really good game, and one of the first I recommend to people who are looking for 2-player game suggestions. So great pick on your side. Number 2 on my side, Targi.
I'm happy it made your list as well, so maybe we can play this again.
I feel like we should lay it out and play, yeah. That's my number 2, Targi.
So the number 1 on my list probably not a surprise, Wingspan Asia.
I knew that one.
I'm a sucker for birds and for good art, and this combines the two. So this is my favorite two-player game. The game is more condensed on the table than the first Wingspan. Sure, I miss the larger birdhouse dice roller, but the smaller dice board makes things a little faster and more within reach. The small bonus board offers some unique ways to get points, which I think is a nice little expansion on what the original Wingspan offers. I love that we are both working off this mat board in addition to our individual player mats. I enjoy this game so much that I don't mind losing, which is typically difficult for me considering how competitive I am. So that's an A+, not just for me, but also for my opponents.
I love this game. This would probably be number 5 on my list. I knew this was gonna be on your list. I wasn't sure if this was gonna be number 1, but I knew this was gonna be on your list. I mean, Wingspan itself, an amazing game. If you love birds, you owe it to yourself to check out Wingspan. The art is amazing, the theming in the game. Every single bird card is unique and accurate with some facts about that bird. It's an amazing game, and if I'm gonna play it at 2 players, without a doubt, I'm playing Wingspan Asia. This is the superior version for 2 players because of that additional sideboard that you mentioned. It just adds so much more dimension to the game.
And like you said too, the facts on the cards are really nice. You know, we don't live in Asia, so these are different birds than what we would normally see. And it's cool to read about their migrations, their nesting, etc. It's a side hobby of mine and ours now, so it's more than just a board game when we play it.
I'd say my weakness at this game, which is probably yours too, is sometimes there are birds that are so cool, I have to get that bird just so it's in my tableau, even if it's not really matching my strategy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Great pick, Wingspan Asia, awesome 2-player game. Check it out. All right, my number 1, there's a new champ in town. It was number 7 on my top 10 new to me games of 2024, and that's Splendor Duel. I really, really like this game. And the more I play it, the more I like it. I was really worried that Splendor Duel was gonna feel kind of clunky, especially compared to how much we like the original Splendor. Like it was gonna feel like a bunch of stuff awkwardly bolted on. But no, you can tell this game was designed very thoughtfully from the ground up. It gives you so many fun new decisions to make, different ways to win, yet it feels just as elegant as the original game. You know, I agree with you that it definitely plays slower than Splendor. I certainly have a lot more analysis paralysis. Not that I get stuck, but that there's just so many different options to think about, right? It's like, oh, do I want to get that card with that bonus? Do I want to stick to the strategy I was going for first? I can see you're going for crowns. Do I want to go for a stack of cards, right? There's so much more to think about, not to mention your bonus token, that this definitely plays a bit slower, but I really like it. It's a lot thinkier. When I was thinking about this list and I put aside thoughts about games with mass appeal or how much I appreciate the design and just instead thought about what game I want to play most right now, hands down, Splendor Duel. This is the game that I want to play when it's just the 2 of us. I am loving this game.
Yeah, good pick for your number 1. I do want to play it again. Obviously, I lost the first time, so I want another I want another chance to redeem myself.
And you usually kick my butt at normal Splendor.
But the normal Splendor has, you know, less ways to win at that game.
It's very linear.
Yes, versus this one, which, like I mentioned, I get a little bit of analysis paralysis with this one, and I usually don't. You know, Splendor, the original, I'm able to stack on. Okay, I can now buy myself 3 different cards if I want to, which is a useful strategy for me. This doesn't play like that. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Great game. My number 1, Splendor Duel. Well, there you have it. Our top 3 board games for 2 players. Now, one thing I'm surprised. So there's a few things that aren't here that I thought would be on your list. One, I thought for sure Genius Square was going to be there because you like that game a lot better than I do.
That's right, I do. And it's also a speed puzzle game.
It's a speed puzzle game. It's Tetris. You play that game by yourself even.
I do. I will set it up and then just time myself and try and get as fast as I can with it. So it is fun, but I don't know. It's hard because there's so many other good 2-player games out there, and maybe it's the fact that one I can play solo, where I don't really classify it as a 2-player game.
I get that. I also thought that Morals was going to squeeze into your number 3.
Yeah, that's a good one, but especially since we just played Blitzkrieg recently and Splendor Duel, it's hard to put any other game or Morals in front of either of those.
Kind of a recency bias, just a little bit of recency bias.
Yes.
And I mean, honestly, you like Morals more than I do. It's a little simplistic. It's a lot of luck. It's a lot less strategy than any of these games here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and hands down or wings down, right? This is always going to have a high place in my mind, even if I haven't played it recently. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, great. If you and your partner are looking for something fun to play this Valentine's Day, maybe give one of these a try. We'd also love to hear what your favorite 2-player games are down in the comments. Thank you again to Kathleen for joining me here today. And hey, you can follow her on her channel @FeathersFur, where she posts videos of all the wildlife that come through our backyard. I'm sure you'll be able to see why Wingspan made her list.
Yes.
I wrote that knowing that this was going to be in your list.
Of course you did.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Have a great Valentine's Day, and we'll see you next time here on Board Game Casual.